right, so why do we struggle with perfectionism? Because we all do. And I've laid out negative aspects and positive aspects because there are aspects that we have that are both positive and negative. Positive things about us that can lead to perfectionism, and also things about us that could be negative that also lead to perfectionism. So we'll start with the positive aspects first. The first thing, the first aspect that is positive, that has a struggle with perfectionism, is that we have standards and references. Most of us work to produce art that is excellent in quality. We want our art to be good quality. We have models we look up to. We are constantly seeing and hearing art that is good quality, that is excellent quality. We can also contrast good quality with bad quality. We're also aware of bad art, badly produced art, and people who are throwing things out there that may be subpar or mediocre. And so we have this constant inundation of these references and models we look up to, whether it's your favorite writers, your favorite illustrators, musicians, electronic artists. For me, I know what I want to be. I aspire to be like a lot of my favorite electronic artists and musicians. So we aspire to get to these skills of these role models, and we aspire to have their experience and artistic and business acumen and knowledge, and even aspire to have a certain system that they have where they can make good decisions frequently, like the business acumen or the artistic acumen. We also know what good craftsmanship is, whether that's intuitively, just being surrounded by good art and craftsmanship, or academically, something with practice, something we're taught, something that is being taught to someone else. So we do know what good craftsmanship is. We also have the experience. You may have the experience, as artists out there, if you're drawing or if you're working on your art, writing, playing a musical instrument, if you're doing this every day with practice, it's inevitable that you become better in your craft. Of course, unless you practice the wrong thing or the wrong technique. So with all of this, we have standards and we have references. And we have high standards. We have good standards, standards of excellence, standards of quality, and we shouldn't lose that. So that's one positive aspect. That's one reason, that is one aspect where we can struggle with perfectionism, because we have a high standard of things. The second positive aspect is we have an ideal of ourselves. So maybe some of you who are in their 20s, you guys in your 20s, some of us in our 30s and 40s and beyond, especially, I think I remember, especially as someone in my early 20s, there's kind of that ideal that I want to be, and kind of that eagerness to get there quite fast. But even getting into my 30s, I see that there's just some level I haven't arrived yet, and I have an idea of what I want to do. I listen to my favorite electronic artists, and I'm thinking, man, I need their skills and I need their equipment, but the skills come first. But I have an understanding. I have enough self-awareness to know where I want to be. And the skill that I want to be is really going to be still years in the making. And I can understand where people in their 20s, and also just, young people in general, teenagers and all that, they want to arrive to a certain thing pretty fast, and they just can't handle less than that. So having an ideal of ourselves is important, because we need an idea of ourselves and working toward that idea and also that ideal. But there could be that problem where, I'm not sounding like this artist. I'm not sounding like this musician. I'm not looking like this illustrator. And so you might hold back on producing what you can. So again, we might have an ideal of ourselves. I have a very specific idea of where I want to be as a composer. And maybe you have someone you aspire to be like, to imitate or even emulate as an artist. It's important to have the ideal of yourself, the artist you want to be in the future, but perfectionism gets in the way where you're starting to compare yourself now with the ideal of yourself or the role model you aspire to be. And that's where perfectionism can seep in. That's where it's been for me. It really took me 4 years after getting my master's. So about 6 years ago, well, actually 2 years ago, 4 years after getting my master's, to really understand, I'm just producing music now that may not be music I produce 10 years from now. And that's okay. That's part of my artistic chronology. So a couple of aspects that are positive, but can allow you to have that propensity to becoming a perfectionist. Those two aspects are having standards and references, constantly referring to those those artists and constantly referring to good art and excellent art. And the other thing is we have an ideal of ourselves. We have an ideal and an idea of what we want to be. Now, getting into the negative aspects, we tend to see anything less than our high standard as a poor reflection of us, at least in my experience. So, for instance, if I produce art, I know I can do better. I tend to think others think of my art the way I think of my art. The truth is, unless it's another professional, most people will not see your art or hear your art like you do. You have more skills in this speciality than you realize. You have skills from practice, and unless it's someone who is on your level or at a higher level, most people will see your art as good. They won't see the flaws the way you see the flaws. And I hope that's encouraging. Of course, you don't want to settle for average, knowing that you can do better, but know that others do not see your music, or, well, I said music because I'm a composer, but they don't hear your music. They don't see your art the way you hear it and see it. They don't pick up on things the way you may pick up on things. For instance, my ears catch everything, every little detail, but my ears catch things people don't hear. And it's because of my involvement in sound and electronic music. So I pick up certain frequencies. I pick up the density of sound. I pick up the whether it's an even or uneven, symmetrical, asymmetrical distribution of the stereophonic space. I have a more acute understanding of localization, from behind my head, behind my earlobe, all that kind of stuff, just because I work in this craft constantly. So that's one thing that is negative. We tend to see anything less than our standard of anything, of any feature in our art. We tend to see anything less as a poor reflection of us as artists, at least in my experience. Maybe I should just say I tend to see anything less than my standard as a poor reflection of me as an artist. I'm better about it now. I just get work done regardless. But I say that has been a constant struggle and a constant overcoming as an artist, especially in the last 4 to 5 years. Another negative aspect is we compare ourselves to our ideal, whether that's an ideal of ourselves, of where we want to be as artists, or we compare ourselves to a role model we have. So where you want to be as an artist might not be realized, might not be fully realized in reality until 10 years from now. And I've learned that that's okay, that you just accept where you are. And this leads into another negative aspect where we don't tend to see the bigger picture. When perfectionism is plaguing us, we tend not to see the bigger picture. We get caught up in the minutia of where we are in the moment or the stage of our profession. But understand that it's a stage. So if you're a beginning artist or an intermediate artist, you're not quite advanced or you haven't achieved mastery level, that's okay. It's a stage, and it's temporary. It's temporary with practice. So those are the negative aspects. These aspects have us struggle with perfectionism. We tend to see anything less than our standard as a poor reflection of us. We can compare ourselves to the ideal, whatever that may be, and we don't always see the bigger picture. And we don't appreciate the process as we go. The next thing is why we must avoid perfectionism. The reason why we must avoid perfectionism is we must be prolific with our art. Releasing singles or albums as a musician or as a composer, publishing short stories, novellas, novels, if you're a writer. Quality is always the goal, but never at the expense of not ever releasing or publishing something. Perfectionism holds us back from doing this. And why does it? Why does it? It's because we will always find something that can be improved. We will always find a feature in a piece of music, in a piece of writing. We can always look and just kind of comb through it and see it with a fine-tooth comb and always be going ever into the micro, like, oh, I should have done that better. I could have done this better. And you just have to save that for the next project and move on. It may be the case where your first pieces of art won't be good, and that's okay, but it still has to be out there as part of your own process as an artist. And I know that's kind of uncomfortable. I think that's it can be a little scary, but I think what it's going to do is just add a little bit more tenacity. And it's actually what's going to help you have is develop a system where you can do this and create prolific quality art in the future. So that's why we must avoid perfectionism, is we have to be prolific with our art and get things out there, get things produced for the world to see as much as possible. This is not a vain thing. This is actually something that will help with your artistic growth. And also, people like to see things frequently. Why do you think YouTube channels grow when there's a video posted 2 to 3 times a week? It's because people are used to seeing frequent output from that person. They may like the content, but if it's once every 8 months, they won't stick around. It's just human nature. We like to see things frequently. So, how to avoid perfectionism? Well, I think the first thing to consider is don't hang on too long in a project. Just get it out there with all its strengths and flaws. People may see a strength that you don't see. They may appreciate your art for something that you may have overlooked because another flaw is getting in your way from seeing, people love my track Trinkets because they think it's very, very relaxing because of the instrumentation. Even when I think that the bass is a little bit too pronounced, people think, oh, that's such a lovely piece. I've been told that. So they're seeing it in a completely different way, where I'm kind of focused on, oh, why is that bass too loud? Why is it too pronounced? And they're like, everyone's like, oh, that's just so relaxing. so get it out there and actually see the strengths through the eyes of other people. So that's one way. Don't hang on too long. Don't hang on too long on one project. Keep moving. Don't be on several projects at once either. I mean, try to just keep a steady flow. The second thing is just create a deadline. So keep a time-based schedule of every project depending on its size. So if it's a small project like an assignment, get it done that day, or get a bigger project done that week. Maybe for me, I can compose and release a piece of music a month. I have that ability to do that. So that's something where I would get the composition done, the structure done in a week, and the instrumentation done by the middle of the next week, and then send it out to the mixing and mastering artist. The third thing is just don't look back once it's released. Give yourself a season, give yourself some break, some time to put that project to bed, get it done, work on something else, and then return to it and evaluate it after just not seeing it for a while or listening to it for a while. Because when you're knee deep in a project, you really do get tunnel vision, and you really just can't hear it in any other way that your mind is set on hearing it or seeing it if you're a visual artist. So don't look back, just release it and move on, and then return to it when you've given yourself enough time, a bit of a mental break, some breathing space there. One way to avoid perfectionism also is accept where you are. Accept where you are in your skills and in your profession. So I would love to sound like Solar Fields. He's one of my favorite electronic artists. Now he has his own style, his own signature, his own voice, and I want to imitate him to where I would sound exactly like him. But he's really inspired me in some of these areas in electronic music. I think I am still years away from sounding like him. This could be software. This could be software where I just don't have the money. But I really do think it's a matter of skill too. I can produce music, but to get his level of composing in popular electronic music, but also eclectic, experimental electronic music, I'm still years in the making. I would probably give it between 2 and 3 years. That would be nice. It'd be great before 40 years old, but I don't think so. I just got to keep practicing. But I'm giving myself about 3 to 5 years of just constantly practicing to get to his level of composing, but also just the resources, acquiring the resources as well. Now, again, I've said this before, do not put equipment, do not put software before your skills. Your skills come first, software comes second. But wherever you are, don't be disappointed in yourself. Don't be frustrated that you're not where you want to be. Just accept where you are in your skills and in your profession, and that actually does mitigate that propensity to becoming a perfectionist. It stops you. It kind of brings your perfectionist mind to a halt, saying, "Oh, I'm fine where I am. I just have to get what I need done at the level I'm at." Next thing is get in the practice of finishing what you start. So I don't have this problem only because I've practiced this for some time now. But I can understand where if you're a perfectionist, it's just hard to finish a project. It's just better to nip that in the bud. Get in the practice of finishing whatever you start. It could be a 2-minute piece of music. It could be a pencil sketch that doesn't require full inking. It could be, again, a rough draft of a short story. And just getting that done before building a world or before actually, creating a character or a new kind of character from that short story to a novel, to a larger work. Just get that first project done. It gets you better faster once you have a system. When you get a project done and you release it or send it to someone else to look at or finish for you, you're starting to develop a system that is intuitive, and that's also effective to getting a lot more prolific. So that's the other thing too, is just you got to finish what you start. The last thing on how to avoid perfectionism is just prolific quality output must be the goal. That must be the goal. People, I've said this just before, just a little earlier, people will stick around. They will stick around to see your art when they see frequent output. So I have this artist, another artist I follow, and when he puts out something, it's just spot on. It's excellent music. It's excellent quality. It's a good performance that he does, but he throws out these videos maybe once every 1 to 2 months. And that's actually better than before, where it was like once every 7 or 8 months. And his channel hasn't grown since. Well, actually now it's getting more, but I think it's growing because he's putting videos out more frequently, and people just latch onto that. So you can have great art or great quality, excellent piece of art, and put it out there. But if you don't have something over a year, people are going to forget about you. And so that's another thing too, is people love frequency. We're designed to latch on to routine and frequency and that kind of, it's like a habit. And that's the goal for me to have is to constantly give people music whenever I can, however frequently I can. Why we struggle with perfectionism? We have standards. We have an ideal of ourselves. We tend to see anything less than that standard as a poor reflection of us. We also compare ourselves to the ideal, and we don't always see the bigger picture in our progress. Why we must avoid perfectionism is we must be prolific with our art. And how to avoid perfectionism is we just can't hang on too long on a project. We have to create a deadline, weekly, daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly deadlines. We shouldn't really look back once it's released. Give yourself a little bit of break and move on to the next thing, and then you can revisit the piece of art. That does help me. Just gives you a little bit of mental space. And then also accept where you are as an artist. Accept where you are in your skills, even if you're not where you want to be, and accept where you are in the profession. Also get in the practice of starting and then finishing. So finishing what you start. And lastly, prolific quality is a very worthy goal as an artist, because people will stick around much more and much longer if you constantly give them something.